welcome back to my channel. Hey, so I'm about to give a trigger warning for this upcoming video here because we are getting into one of the most notorious and infamous cases of one unaliving mother who, quite frankly, I really wanted to forget about and did from the time that she was convicted. And now it seems she's up for parole. Lucky her. Unfortunately, the same mercy was not said for her two children. But we're going to get into that sharing. So again, trigger warning. I'm sure a lot of you, or at least for those who have been around in the 90s, you will be fully aware of this infamous, notorious individual, Susan Smith. She was accused and convicted of unaliving her two children, which I do believe she actually confessed to. She decided that she was going to not only commit the crime itself, then she was going to blame it on an innocent man of another race in another town, which I'm sure terrorized that town until the truth finally came out. Yeah, she's a real peach. So the fact that she is up for parole was just mind-boggling to think that, wow, we could just throw away the key on that one, huh? All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into this sharing, shall we? Yes, we shall. All right, so according to NEWSBREAK and USA Today, Susan Smith, convicted of unaliving her two children in the infamous 1994 case, is up for parole. Almost 30 years after being convicted of rolling her car into a South Carolina lake and drowning her two sons, Susan Smith is up for parole. Now, Smith, 53, is serving life in prison after being convicted in 1995 and escaping the death penalty after a heavily publicized trial. Now, her two children, Michael and Alex, were 3 years old and 14 months old, respectively. Let me repeat that again. Her two children were Michael and Alex, and they were 3 years old and 14 months old, respectively. Under South Carolina law at the time, Smith is able to ask the state to be released after serving 30 years. The South Carolina Department of Probation, Parole, and Pardon Services announced on Monday that Smith's parole hearing is scheduled for November 20th. The hearing is set to be held online, with Smith joining from prison. The lead prosecutor in her trial, Tommy Pope, told USA Today Smith should not be granted parole. I believe in truth in sentencing for everyone, and I think the sentence should be exactly what it was, what the jury rendered, which was that she would spend the rest of her natural life in prison, said Pope, who is now the Republican Speaker pro tem of the South Carolina House. How interesting. Now, Pope confirmed that he and the boy's father, David Smith, plan to testify in front of the parole board to argue against Smith's release. Pope believes Smith has not felt remorse in the almost 3 decades behind bars. What I want to relate to the parole board is that Susan Smith has not been thinking of Michael and Alex, he said. Susan Smith has been focused on what's for Susan, which has clearly been what she has done from day one in committing this crime. Now, USA Today could not find an attorney representing Smith, but an internationally known case it was. So let's go ahead and continue. Smith became infamous in 1994 when she said her car was stolen late at night near Union, South Carolina. She said an African-American man took her car with her two children inside. Now, for 9 days, she pleaded for the return of her two boys, but it was later revealed that her car and children were at the bottom of a nearby lake. She confessed to letting her car roll down a boat ramp and into the lake and fabricating the story. She had led people on for so many days that their hearts were poured out to help find Michael and Alex, Pope said. So with that context, I was a solicitor, the district attorney, and made the decision to seek the death penalty. The case also happened around the same time as the O.J. Simpson unaliving trial, another media frenzy. There was a lot going on in 94, 95. You remember all that? So now the OJ case, and not to mention the Menendez brothers case, was also mixed into that situation as well, probably towards the end. So now the OJ case was really the first media intensive introduction into the courtroom to the criminal justice system that people had. The Smith case kind of landed in the middle of that, Pope said. Pope said that the presiding judge on Smith's case did not allow cameras in the courtroom, but it still became part of the national conversation. Now, Smith has had a record of violations inside prison. Apparently, Smith has gathered a long list of violations inside prison. These have drawn disciplinary actions from the South Carolina Department of Corrections, reported the Greenville News, part of the USA Today network. Smith was disciplined for communicating with a documentary filmmaker about her crimes, which is against corrections policy, according to Christy Shane, a department spokesperson. Smith was charged on August 26 with the violation, found guilty on October 3rd, and lost her telephone, tablet, and canteen privileges for 90 days. In 2000, Smith was also found to have engaged in acts with two corrections officers during her time at the Women's Correctional Center in Columbia, South Carolina. Both officers involved were fired, and Smith was moved to a different facility. She has also been disciplined multiple times for mutilation or injury to an inmate's body that was self-inflicted, as well as rug with a D in front of it use. Now, how does the parole process work in South Carolina, you may ask? Well, to be granted parole, Smith would have to receive 2/3 of the vote of the 7-member parole board. According to Anita Dantzler, Public Information Director for the South Carolina Department of Probation, Parole and Pardon Services, it is customary for the board to cast its vote at the end of the hearing. So I'm going to be able to say this in very few words because I've said quite a bit of how I felt about it in the beginning. I don't think she should get out myself either. I think she should stay exactly where she's at. The bottom line is those young boys do not have the opportunity to resume their life because she took them from them. And not to mention, then blamed it on somebody else who had nothing to do with what she was doing. Now, there was some speak about that it was a potential situation where she may have been dating somebody, and that was the reason why she got rid of the boys. I don't even remember it. I don't even really care. At the end of the day, this was a heinous and egregious situation, to say the least. And it's just really sad when you have to continually be put in a position, not maybe us, per se, but the family members, the people who are associated and affected directly by her situation and her acts, have to relive this over and over again, as if going through day to day isn't hard enough as it is. She stole those boys' futures. She stole any ability of them to have children and to have their milestones and their life stones. This was an individual who was charged with the ability, or maybe charged is the wrong word to use in this sense, but she was responsible for the well-being and the safety and sanctity of those two children, and she failed miserably. So at the end of the day, I personally feel like hopefully it will be a no on this situation, because sometimes people belong exactly where they are. And there was no doubt in all of the atrocities that was shared, and I haven't heard anything new. Now, if there was something different, I'm sure we would be hearing about it sometime soon. I haven't heard any type of organizations or anyone else who has tried to come to her aid and saying that there was things that were presented that should not have been, or that they were not related to any situation. In other words, that maybe she isn't what you think she is. I haven't heard anything to that extent, and I'm trying to keep it very over the umbrella type of effect. If you have, feel free to drop it down in the comment section. Let's have a conversation about it. Of course, this is a very triggering and charged conversation, of course, and story. And so I just ask for everybody to be kind in the comment section. If you should choose to want to share, and I mean with each other, if you choose to share your thoughts about it, because I definitely would like to know, what do you think? Do you think that she really deserves to walk? Do you think 30 years is enough time for what is going on? Because what comes to mind is that Chris guy a few years ago now, we won't go into it fully, but I think it was not a Colorado situation. I'm not 100% sure, but where he found his young children, right? So after he unalived his pregnant wife. So, at 30 years, wow. That's a lifetime, as far as living it every day. And you could think back like, wow, but it just somehow doesn't still seem long enough. And, at the end of the day, maybe she can work on being a model citizen. I don't know. But I don't know if we need another homicidal maniac in our society walking the streets amongst everybody else. I just don't know if that's necessary. And one who was capable to not only do the act, plan it or do it, whatever the case may be, and then try to blame it on somebody else. And then I guess maybe things got to her to this point. I'd have to read back through it, and I don't want to do that per se. But they decided, to come out. And I think it was because her story was unraveling. Now, I was living abroad at the time when this happened. So when the news came out about it, it's a few hours after everybody else was getting it, or it was a few hours ahead. I think, no, we were a few hours ahead. And so at the end of the day, it was like, oh my gosh, what the heck is really going on? And of course you were dealing with the Menendez situation that we, were kind of coming off the heels of. Then you had the OJ situation that was off and popping as well. And in this, it was like, what is actually going on in the ether around this time? So yeah, that's my thoughts. I would love to know yours. And I think that about does it for this video. The notorious unalived mother is up for parole. Yeah, there we go. So with that, thank you again for taking the time to watch, and give the video a like. I'd appreciate that. And for sure, if you are new here and you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit subscribe. I want you to be part of the family. Let's talk about it. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on around here, and it's nice to have someone to conversate about it with. But I thank you again so much for taking the time. So you take care and you be blessed. And be kind to each other and be kind to yourself. And thank you so much. And until next time, hey, make sure you have your notification bell on too, because I do have another video coming up. Yeah, we got another peach. But we got to cover it. We got to get it through. So with that, I'm going to bid you adieu. You take care. And next time, bye.